simply close the parenthesis. So now for the if function, all we need to do is to simply introduce just this if function. So let's hit the enter key to see what will happen. So we'll simply do that, and voila. Well, here we are in this Excel workbook, and today we would like to grade you students using either the if and the is function to see which one is much more convenient or easier to use. So then, how do we start? So we've been given the student scores over here and the criteria to follow. So in the case a student scores between 85 and 100 is an A plus, 70 to 84 is an A, then true to 0 to 39, which is an F. So then let's start using the if function. So we'll simply select the cell right under the grade. Then we'll simply introduce the if function, hit the tab key, and the logical test we want to start with is if a student, so if this very score right here is greater than, or if a student scores greater than or equal to an 85, right? So greater than or equal to an 85, then if it is true, what we want to return is, then that means the student had an A plus for the grade. So we'll simply type that in, an A plus for the grade. Then we'll hit the comma, and if it is false, then rather than simply bringing something over here, we'll introduce the next argument. So we'll introduce another if function for that. So we hit the tab key again. So what's the second logical test? The second logical test is if a student scores greater than or equal to a 70, so greater than or equal to a 70 as per this criteria, then if it is true, then we'll give the student an A. Then we'll move on to the next logical test. If it is false, we'll introduce another function again. So that's the next logical test. We'll hit the tab key to select the if again. And the next logical test is if a student scores greater than or equal to 60%, right? Then the corresponding grade should be a C. So we'll close the quote for that one. Then we'll introduce the next logical test again. So we'll go on and on until we end to the F grade. So hit the tab key again. Then next logical test is the 50. So if this very same cell, or if a student scores greater than or equal to a 50, then the score or the grade will be a C. So introduce that. Always be sure to type a test in a double quote when you are using formulas or functions. So introduce the if function again, hit the tab key. Then the next logical test, if a student scores greater than or equal to a 40, then, greater than or equal to a 40, then its corresponding grade is a D. Then, if false, so here, rather than typing the 0 to 39, we can simply introduce the comma sign. And if it is false, we will simply introduce the F sign rather than introducing an if function again. So we'll simply do that. So if it is false, so if all these criteria isn't met, then that means a student scored between 0 to 39. So the corresponding grade is an F. So that's what we've done over here. So now we'll close parentheses for this, for all these if functions we've introduced. So we'll simply do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and we'll simply hit the enter, and voila, everything will appear for us over here. So 89, so 89 is between 85 and 100. So obviously it's an A plus. 93 is an A plus. 79, 77, they are all A, and a 45 is a D. So what if we had to change the score of, let's say, Akwasi Bonsu to 35, and we'll simply hit the enter, then he actually got an F for that. So that means our statement over here, our if statement over here is actually on point. So this is how you can use the if function to grade your students in a class or in a school. And if you would like to also do for the remarks also, you can do same by simply following the same thing. So if a student scores greater than or equal to an 85, then the remark is a distinction and it moves on and on and on. So now, how do we use the ifs function over here? So the ifs function gives us a little bit of an easier way. So let's simply introduce the ifs function. So simply type the ifs, hit the tab key, and now it is asking us for the logical test just like the previous if function. So all we need to do here is to introduce our first logical test. So simply select this very cell. So if this very cell, just like the previous one, is greater than or equal to an 85, right? To an 85, then what we want to return is an A plus. So introduce the quotes, then we'll do the A plus, then we'll introduce the comma sign. And here, if you have to carefully look at it, rather than value if false, it gives us the option for another logical test. So here we don't need to type in another if function. All we need to do is to simply introduce our second logical test. So we'll simply select this very cell again. And if it is greater than or equal to a 70, then the student had an A, right, for the grade. So we'll simply select the next logical test. So if a student scores greater than or equal to a 60, then its corresponding grade will be a B. So we'll put it in a double quote. Then we'll move on to the next logical test. So we'll select this score again. And if it is greater than or equal to a 50, then its corresponding grade will be a C. So we'll do that. Then the last two will be if this score is also greater than or equal to a 40, then the student had a D in the grade. And the last one will be if a student scored greater than or equal to a 0, then its corresponding grade will be an F. So we'll do that and simply close the parenthesis. So now for the if function, all we need to do is to simply introduce just this if function. So let's hit the enter key to see what will happen. So we'll simply do that, and voila. So with the if function, all we needed to do was introduce just a single function, then it catered for the remaining of our arguments, unlike the if function. So I ask, which one are you going to use going forward? Well, if this video was very helpful for you, please kindly hit the like and subscribe button and share to support the channel. As usual, if there is anything you would like to know in Microsoft Excel, kindly let me know in the comment section and I will gladly help out. Until next time, it's bye for now.